Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Godlike Naruto is the Riser brother. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Toshima and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, Rebirth. Well, this sucks, Naruto thought to himself as he looked at the hole in his stomach that was gradually expanding from the all-killing bone ash that Kaguya had managed to strike him with. While he and Sasuke may have defeated the primordial god, the victory was rather short-lived as, in her last moments, Kaguya Otsutsuki had managed to force the young blonde through one of her dimensional portals. While knowing he was no longer in the elemental nations with no idea where he had ended up was rather disconcerting. It seemed like a minor detail in comparison to the fact that he was slowly dying thanks to the certain kill technique that he had been struck with, and it was most certainly not a pleasant experience. He was managing to somewhat hold back the effects for now, but his sage mode would soon wear off, and the fact that there seemed to be something keeping him from accessing any of Kurama's chakra no matter how hard he tried was making his chances of survival seem rather bleak. Hearing a cough to his left, Naruto turned to see a boy about his age with brown hair that was lying in a pool of what was clearly his own blood judging from the hole in his gut that was vaguely reminiscent of his own. Guess I'm not the only one who's having a bad day, he chuckled humorlessly, but got no response from the boy who seemed to be on the edge of consciousness. Just as he felt the last of the nature chakra leave his system and his body beginning to deteriorate at an accelerated rate, there was a bright red light that caused him to avert his eyes before he saw a girl with flowing waves of crimson-red hair appear from the strange symbol that was vaguely reminiscent of Fuinjutsu, yet altogether different. Beautiful, he managed to whisper hoarsely as his breathing became labored, which he attested to the fact that his lungs had begun to disintegrate as well. Looks like I inherited Dad's preference for redheads, he idly mused as he watched the girl approach the boy that was still bleeding out, and place something on his chest, before saying some kind of chant that he couldn't quite hear. Once she finished her chant, another strange red circle appeared beneath the boy as whatever was on his chest seemed to sink into it somehow. Once that was done and the strange red circle disappeared, Naruto coughed up a mixture of blood and ash which was probably one of the most disgusting things he had ever tasted. But that was hardly his primary concern, as a good portion of his chest had already disintegrated and he was running out of chakra trying to slow down the process. How he was even still alive at this point was nothing short of miraculous. Oh my, the girl seemed to have finally noticed his presence, likely from when he coughed a moment ago. As she approached, she seemed to look him over appraisingly before kneeling at his side. It is within my power to save you, but it would come at a price that you may or may not come to regret in the future. By the looks of things, you don't have enough time for me to go into details, the girl explained briefly. Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but all that managed to come out was a sort of strangled wheezing sound. A simple nod yes or no will suffice, the girl advised upon his apparent inability to speak at this point, as she marveled at the strange sight of his body slowly turning to ash. Naruto managed to give a weak nod in the affirmative, as his eyes slowly drifted closed. The last thing he could recognize before his consciousness finally left him was the slight weight of something small being placed somewhere on what remained of his chest, and red light that managed to bleed through his eyelids. Then all went dark. When Naruto finally awoke, he was lying on what was undoubtedly the most comfortable bed he had ever been on, and had absolutely no desire to get up, being more than content to remain on the cloud-like softness beneath him. Rolling over to turn away from the sunlight creeping in through the window, he curled up with a warm, soft body pillow that had a delightful scent, completely ignoring the oddity of a warm, scented pillow. Pulling the pillow snugly against his bare chest, his hand lightly squeezed the soft globe that rested in his palm. Ignoring the soft mngh and increased pace of the subtle throbbing sensation he could feel, he nuzzled his face into wait a second, since when do pillows moan and have a heartbeat? He thought as he blinked his eyes open to notice his face was buried in a curtain of soft, crimson tresses. Finally realizing the position he was in, he leapt back as much as he was able before falling the short distance from atop the bed to the floor below. Taking a look around, he found himself in an unfamiliar room that he could recall as being somewhat similar to what he would find when visiting various noblemen, daimyos and foreign dignitaries. The room seemed to be themed in a sort of Gothic style, being composed mostly of blacks and reds, and in the center of the room was the large, king-size bed that he had previously been lying in, with a red canopy draped above that was bordered in a golden trim that gave it a very regal appearance. And currently occupying aforementioned bed, seemed to be the redhead that he could vaguely recall seeing before what he thought was his death. Letting out a soft yawn and raising her arms above her head in a light stretch, the girl finally seemed to be rejoining the waking world. Turning to the interdimensional hero sitting on the floor, she smiled while the sheet that was previously covering her fell away to reveal that she was completely naked, and had what was undoubtedly the nicest pair of that's beside the point. Naruto derailed that train of thought as he covered his eyes. Okay, who are you and why are you naked? Naruto finally managed to ask once his mind cleared of the inappropriate thoughts that would likely make his perverted sensei proud. My name is Rias and I prefer to sleep naked. I have a hard time getting comfortable sleeping in pajamas, Rias answered as she looked the boy over and had to admit that she definitely found him rather attractive. From his messy blonde hair with reddish-orange streaks through it, to his bright blue eyes and cute birthmarks that were reminiscent of whiskers. And he certainly had a nice physique that could have only been attained through years of rigorous training. "Oh, and you're naked too, by the way," she informed, but not before getting a good look of the appendage that defined him as a man. She wasn't disappointed. Finally registering her words and noticing his state of undress, Naruto let out an embarrassed "HH" before covering himself and quickly turning around. This action, of course, gave Rias a clear view of his broad shoulders, rippling back muscles and toned rear end. "Where am I?" Naruto asked after yanking the blanket off of the bed to cover himself before turning back around. Adamantly keeping his eyes off of the very large, Naruto once again marveled at her beautiful red hair that ran all the way down to her thighs and had a strand of hair that seemed to refuse to stay down and stuck up like an antenna. Her blue-green eyes were very eye-catching and went well with her pale, unblemished skin that, he could say with certainty from their earlier position, was incredibly soft and smooth. "This is my room. I was unable to find anything that had your address on it when I found you last night, so I brought you here. After I was finished healing you, I was pretty worn out, so I slept with you. You're quite comfortable to sleep with." Ignoring the blush from being told he was comfortable, Naruto looked to see that there was no sign of scar, blemish or anything to indicate he had ever received the fatal wound he had. The only scar that marred his tan flesh was the one beside his heart where he had been struck by Sasuke's Chidori all those years ago. "Thanks for that, by the way. Healing me, I mean," Naruto thanked his savior with a bright grin. Rias returned the smile and waved off his thanks, saying that it was no problem. "While we're on the subject, how did you save me? I'll explain everything this afternoon. There's someone else that I need to explain things to, and I would rather not have to repeat the same conversation," Rias answered as she finally got up and started getting dressed. Naruto nodded his understanding and was willing to wait for whoever the other person was. He assumed it was most likely the boy from last night. "Oh, my name is Naruto, by the way. Naruto Uzumaki," he introduced himself after realizing he had neglected to up to this point. "It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun." Rias giggled softly as she finished putting her bra on. "If you'd like, there should be some of my brother's old clothes in the room across the hall. I'm afraid the ones that you were wearing last night were unsalvageable." "That'd be great," Naruto said as he wrapped the blanket around him in a sort of pseudo-toga until he could get some proper clothes. Seeing Rias bend over to pick up her shirt, Naruto couldn't help but notice her long, slender legs and perfect backside. Ignoring the blush that he was sure was adorning his face, he made his way into the room across the hall where Rias had said her brother's clothes would be. Making his way into the closet, Naruto went through the clothes he found hanging there before settling for a pair of plain black slacks and a white dress shirt. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything orange. "What the hell happened to my hair?" Naruto shouted in surprise when he went to the mirror to see how his outfit looked and noticed the red-orange streaks in his hair that should not have been there. "Is something wrong, Naruto-kun?" Rias asked as she entered the room wearing a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. "Did someone dye my hair while I was sleeping? I've never had these streaks in my hair before," Naruto questioned as he motioned to the strange red-orange streaks in his hair. "No," Rias frowned in confusion. "Your hair was like that when I found you last night. I think it looks good though. It gives you a sort of roguish look." Rias smiled as she straightened the collar of the white dress shirt he was wearing with the top two buttons undone, giving a glimpse of his firm pectorals. "If you say so," Naruto answered skeptically as he ran his hand through his untamed spikes of hair. "I'll be back to pick you up after school. Feel free to make yourself at home until then," Rias told him as she made her way out of the room with Naruto following after her until they reached the front door. Once they had said their goodbyes and Rias closed the door behind her, Naruto made his way back into the large foyer where he would have more space. "Let's see if this works," he mused to himself as he bit his thumb before slamming his hand on the floor in an attempt to perform a summoning jutsu. "Damn," he cursed as the technique failed and dashed his hopes of being reverse summoned. "So much for that idea. Guess I should at least explore this place and see if I can find anything useful." With his next course of action decided, he placed his hands in the familiar sign of his signature jutsu and was rewarded with the sight of several copies of himself appearing in front of him. "You know what to do," he commanded as the group of clones nodded before splitting up to explore the large home that could easily be considered as a mansion. Doing some exploring of his own, he made his way into what he assumed was the living room, which seemed to be decorated in an early Victorian style with a pair of incredibly comfortable-looking armchairs beside a wood-burning fireplace. On the other side of the room, there was a pair of couches around what he assumed was an antique coffee table that were angled toward what had to be the biggest TV he had ever seen. More importantly, sitting on top of the coffee table was his hip pouch containing his ninja tools and his kunai holster. Quickly grabbing them and placing them in their proper locations, his thoughts were interrupted with the memories of his clones that had apparently completed their own explorations and dispelled themselves. The most notable discovery his clones had made was of a rather large library with floor-to-ceiling shelves that were completely filled with various books. "Might as well learn some things about this place since I'm apparently stuck here for the foreseeable future," he thought with a heavy frown as he made his way to the library and produced a dozen clones. "Look for anything you can find about this place's history or anything else that might help in the future." With that out of the way, Naruto and his clones browsed the various shelves for anything they could find of interest. The hours seemed to fly by as Naruto and his clones continued to read through various books on history, geography, and even various languages. It was odd how similar Japanese was to his own language, but he wasn't complaining. However, after reading that the most dominant language in this world was English, he had several clones study that language as well. The most interesting discovery though was definitely the several books that he had managed to find on magic. While it seemed strange that such a thing actually existed in this world, he wasn't terribly surprised by it considering that he had yet to notice any sign of chakra in the few people that he had met, though he did notice a similar yet inherently different sort of energy coming from Rias. Surprisingly enough, he was able to find a small amount of that same energy in himself that had never been there before. So absorbed in his research of magic and its various forms, he failed to notice how much time had passed by until he heard a surprised gasp coming from behind him. Naruto and his clones all turned to the source of the noise to see Rias standing in the doorway with wide eyes as she took in the sight of multiple copies of the blonde and orange-haired teen reading multiple books and even spotted a few practicing basic lightning magic as it sparked slightly between their fingers. "You so many how?" Rias stammered as she tried to come to terms with what she was seeing. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly as he realized he had neglected to mention that he was a ninja. Yeah, about that. Naruto went on to give her a brief explanation on the basics of where he came from and minor details from his history and what his people were capable of. He even walked up the wall until he was standing upside down on the ceiling to further emphasize his point. By the time Naruto had finished his explanation, Rias was completely starstruck. "As much as I would like to ask you some questions, we really should be going," Rias said once she had finally managed to calm down. Naruto nodded his head as he dispelled his clones and motioned for Rias to lead the way. Once the pair had managed to make their way to what Rias had informed him was called the Occult Research Club, Naruto took notice of the fact that the building appeared to be rather old, but was well maintained. Making their way through the halls, they came to a pair of large wooden doors that Rias opened and motioned for him to enter. Taking a look around the room, Naruto immediately noticed a small, admittedly adorable, white-haired girl sitting on a couch eating cookies and a buxom girl with long raven hair tied in an orange ribbon setting down a tray of what was likely freshly brewed tea on a large wooden desk near the center of the room. "Welcome back, Bucho. I take it this is Naruto-kun?" The Ravenet greeted, earning a nod from the Crimson Beauty who appeared to be in charge. "Yes it is. Is Kiba retrieving our other guest?" "Yes, he should be back soon. Would either of you like a cup of tea?" The girl offered, earning an affirmative response from Rias, and a slight nod from Naruto as he continued to study the room and its occupants. While both of the other girls had the same energy as Rias that he now knew to be magic, he was surprised to note that the small white-haired girl was the first person he had met that had chakra besides himself. Could she be from the elemental nations too? He wondered as he accepted the cup of tea that was offered to him with a short thank you. Any further conversation was put on hold as the door opened to reveal a blonde-haired boy with blue-gray eyes and a mole near his left eye that appeared to be slightly younger than himself and would definitely be considered a pretty boy. Trailing behind him was the brown-haired boy that he recognized as the one from last night that had been bleeding out beside him. "Excellent. Now that everyone is here, I believe introductions are in order. These two are Issei Hayato and Naruto Uzumaki," Rias stated as she motioned to each of them respectively while Issei greeted everyone with a "nice to meet you" and Naruto just gave a simple yo and a slight wave. "Issei, Naruto-kun, this is Akino Himejima, Yuro Kiba and Kaneko Tuju," Rias introduced the other members of the Occult Research Club. Akino and Kiba both gave a short bow while Kaneko gave a nod of the head before returning to nibbling on her snack, though Naruto noticed that she seemed to be keeping an eye on him. "Now that that's out of the way, can somebody explain what's going on exactly?" Naruto asked, wanting to address the elephant in the room sooner rather than later, while Issei nodded his agreement, clearly as confused as he was. "To get straight to the point, I suppose I should start by saying that everyone in this room is a devil," Rias explained, earning narrowed eyes from Naruto and an intelligent "a what?" from Issei. Naruto didn't fail to notice that she had said everyone in the room, which would imply him as well. As if to further illustrate the point, a pair of bat-like wings sprouted from the backs of Rias, Akino, Kiba and Kaneko. Definitely not the strangest thing I've ever seen. Still pretty crazy though, Naruto thought as he carefully studied the new appendages while Issei just stared dumbfounded at them. "You're all devils? Like as in, from hell?" Issei asked with a hint of skepticism and a dash of fear. "We prefer to call it the underworld, but yes." "And when I said everyone, that included you, Issei," Rias answered, and as if that was some kind of verbal command, a similar pair of wings burst from Issei's back. However, everyone's attention was immediately drawn to Naruto when not one, but 4 pairs of wings appeared behind him, each of the 8 wings having a small lining of what seemed like red-orange fur along the edge similar to the streaks running through his hair. Everyone was so focused on his wings, Akino even going so far as to drop the silver platter she was holding in her surprise, that they all failed to notice the similarly colored tail that was casually waving behind him, and the pair of pointed ears that now occupied the top of his head. "How is this possible?" Rias questioned as she approached him. "Only descendants of the original Lucifer have ever had more than a single pair of wings." She continued to voice her confusion as she closely examined the strange wings before finally noticing the tail that was slowly moving about. "Well, that's certainly new," Naruto answered casually as he looked at the wings before narrowing his eyes at the tail. "Kurama?" He called out to his oldest companion, but even though he could still feel his chakra, he received no response. Fox, Kaneko stated flatly with a slight narrowing of her eyes. Naruto scratched his head in confusion before feeling the furry protrusions that shouldn't have been there. Okay, the wings I can deal with, but the tail and ears? What the hell is going on? Naruto frowned as he continued to try to reach out to Kurama with no response. That's what I'd like to know. I wasn't aware that you were a yokai and the wings are somewhat troubling, Rias said thoughtfully as she lightly tapped her chin with her index finger. Okay, seriously, what the fuck is going on? Issei exclaimed loudly, causing Naruto's new ears to twitch at the abrupt noise, though he would like an answer to that as well. I'm with him on this one. Can someone please explain how I went from being a human to this? Naruto put in his own 2 cents as he gestured to the various changes. Well, in order for things to make sense, I should probably explain a few things, Rias said before going on to give a brief lesson about the history of the 3 factions, the evil peace system and how she had reincarnated them as devils in her peerage. So in layman's terms, to keep us from dying you made us your slaves. Naruto gave an oversimplification as he frowned slightly at the implications that brought with it. In a sense, but my family has always treated our peerages more like family and I'm no exception to that, Rias responded, which alleviated some of his worries, but he was still somewhat skeptical. I guess my next question would be, if you only have a limited number of those evil peace things to use, why use them on us? Naruto asked, which, while he hadn't thought of it before, Issei was also curious about the answer. Well, for starters I couldn't just turn my back on the 2 of you when I found you dying, Rias began, and while Naruto could see she wasn't exactly lying, he could tell there was definitely more to it than that. Though I would be lying if I said there wasn't a bit of an ulterior motive behind my decision. I figured as much, Naruto nodded. It would be hard to believe that a devil would do something likely that purely out of the goodness of their heart. As far as Issei goes, I could tell he has a sacred gear which are gifts bestowed upon some humans from the biblical god. What sacred gear it is though, I have no idea. When he heard the term sacred gear, Issei started looking at his crotch, causing Naruto to facepalm. I seriously doubt that she was talking about that, you moron. I swear, I'm always surrounded by perverts, Naruto lamented with a shake of his head. Naruto-kun is correct. That is most certainly not what I was referring to, Rias answered dryly while Akino giggled and Kaneko shook her head. Think of any historically significant figure throughout history and odds are they most likely had a sacred gear of some sort. Try focusing and see if you can feel some sort of energy inside of you. Sometimes it helps if you imagine something powerful. I could always beat him until something happens. Near-death experiences usually help with this sort of thing, Naruto offered, causing various reactions throughout the room. Issei took a step back in fear with a horrified expression while Kaneko smirked. Kiba shook his head while trying to hold back his laughter and Rias sighed and shook her head, though she too was holding back her laughter at the idea. The most worrying response, however, was the slight blush that Akino had and the disturbing giggle that sent a shiver down his spine. I would prefer not to resort to violence, Rias noted, earning a nonchalant shrug from Naruto. Always worked for me, he admitted, drawing stares from everyone in the room. Moving on, Rias said, getting back to the matter at hand. As I was saying, try picturing yourself as someone powerful or something in particular that you would associate with that person, she explained, making Issei take on a thoughtful expression. Issei immediately thought of the characters from Dragon Ball. Everyone except Krillin. He was just a punching bag there for comic relief, he thought before picturing himself as Goku and moving himself into the stance he would use for the infamous Kamehameha. With his hands cupped together at his side, Issei called out Kamehameha, enunciating each syllable for emphasis before throwing his hands forward at the end. Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion before, to his surprise, a strange red gauntlet appeared on the boy's left arm that seemed to be composed of segmented red bits of armor with some sort of green jewel on the back of his hand, which spread from the back of his hand to his mid-forearm with 2 strange yellow spikes protruding from it. Well, that's certainly a new one, Naruto thought, as, even among the multitude of strange revelations that had been occurring, this was rather odd. Well done, Issei. Now that you've unlocked your sacred gear you should be able to draw it out easily. Rias smiled with a small clap while Issei looked the strange gauntlet over with a sense of wonder like a kid who had just been given a new toy. This is so cool. So what does it do? Issei asked excitedly. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research on it. But for now you should put it away, Rias answered before telling Issei how to equip and unequip the strange gauntlet. So that explains him. But why did you use one of those things on me? Naruto asked, drawing the attention back to himself as he leaned against the wall with his new tail wrapped around his waist, and the wings no longer present. A few reasons, actually. I was quite interested when I noticed you had chakra. I've never heard of a human with chakra before then. The main reason though was the amount of chakra you have, Rias admitted while hiding his surprise that she was actually able to sense chakra. He assumed Kaneko likely could since she possessed chakra, but didn't think the others would be able to. Also, I noticed that you were using a strange form of senjutsu, Rias said, earning narrowed eyes and a noticeable frown from Kaneko. From there, Naruto gave a similar explanation to the one he had given to Rias earlier about how he had ended up here, being a ninja from another world and other basic information. Rias had that same starstruck expression she had before, and he could tell she likely had a million questions to ask, but the others all looked skeptical, until he created 2 clones, stood on the ceiling like he did earlier with Rias, and even showed them the Rasengan. So you seriously fought in a war where a guy could make meteors fall from the sky and that other chick could make portals to other dimensions? Issei asked in disbelief, but found it hard to argue against the evidence he had been shown. Pretty much, Naruto shrugged casually as if fighting a primordial god was an everyday occurrence. Is something wrong, Kaneko? Naruto asked when he noticed she was still glaring at him with a thoughtful frown. You use senjutsu, she answered monotonously as if that explained everything. Yeah, Naruto trailed off in confusion. Is that a bad thing? Naruto looked around the room to see the others. Sans Issei, who had no idea what senjutsu was, had various expressions of sadness. While it's rare for someone to be able to use senjutsu in this world, it's not unheard of. And for those that do use it, there's a large chance of them losing their sanity due to the hatred and malice that have filled our world, Rias explained with a sorrowful sigh. Naruto noticed that Kaneko's expression had soured further, and she was clenching her fists tightly at the mention of people going insane from the use of senjutsu. I see, she must know someone that happened to. I don't know how senjutsu is for the people here, but it's clearly different from the way I learned it, Naruto explained, earning a raised brow from Rias and a disbelieving look from Kaneko. It'll be easier to explain if I show you, Naruto said before he sat in a lotus position and closed his eyes. The others watched with bated breath while Kaneko struggled to keep herself from stopping him. Everyone let out a content sigh as the room was suddenly filled with a comforting warmth that seemed to put them at peace. Naruto opened his eyes to reveal a pair of red eyes with slit pupils and a red pigmentation surrounding his eyes that trailed down his cheeks as if he had been crying tears of blood. They all looked at him in surprise at the overwhelming power they could feel, but none more so than Kaneko, who stared at him in disbelief, noticing there was no sign of malice or dark emotion in his aura. How? Kaneko stuttered out as kept her eyes trained on his. Like I said, my senjutsu is different. When I was learning to become a sage, I learned to become one with nature and not simply take the energy like I assume people here do. While it's true that I do draw in natural energy, I also balance it with my own chakra and share it in turn with nature. Take that tree in the corner for example, Naruto explained as he drew their attention to the tree that was previously about waist high, but now was nearly touching the ceiling and looked healthier than ever before. You see, I'm a true sage, not just somebody who steals from nature with no regard. That's why Mother Nature protects me and likely shields me from the hatred and malice you mentioned, though I can still sense them. Everyone was staring at him like he had 2 heads before Rias once again got their attention. Now that that's out of the way, I think we should explain what your duties will be as a new devil. Naruto could feel a sense of dread wash over him at those words, not liking where this was going. Ugh, it's like doing D-rank missions all over again, Naruto groaned as he held a stack of flyers that he was told he had to pass out in order to form contracts with people. The worst part was Rias had forbidden him from using clones and even had what she had said was her familiar watching him to make sure he wasn't cheating. Hey, at least people are actually taking some of yours, Issei growled beside him with a noticeably larger stack of flyers. Naruto shrugged his shoulders at the younger boy's plight. It's probably because you give off a bit of a creeper vibe. The ogling you keep doing every time a girl walks by probably doesn't help either, Naruto said with a smirk, drawing an irritated glare from Issei. Oh fuck you, fox boy, Issei responded with an indignant huff. Naruto tilted his head with a thoughtful expression. I appreciate the offer, but I'm gonna have to pass. Issei opened his mouth to respond before closing it with an audible clicking of teeth before turning around with a growl and resumed his attempts to pass out flyers. He's way too easy, Naruto thought with an amused shake of the head. Maybe this place won't be so bad. Chapter 2 Adapting. I was wrong. This totally sucks, Naruto growled as he looked at the uniform lying on the bed of the room Rias had designated as his room. Why am I being punished like this? I saved the world, damn it. Shouldn't I get some kind of break? Naruto lamented as he pulled at his hair. Sorry Naruto-kun, but it would be pretty suspicious for someone who's not a student to be seen coming and going from the clubroom, Rias explained from the doorway. Naruto frowned as he continued to glare at the uniform, hoping that it would disappear. I'm a ninja. I could just sneak in and out without anybody ever even seeing me, he pointed out with a hopeful look before it was shattered by the dismissive shrug Rias gave as she waved him off. I'm sure you could, but it would help for you to blend in with society. Besides, it wouldn't hurt for you to learn a few things, Rias said before sticking her tongue out playfully. I never should have told her about how bad I was in the academy. Naruto hung his head in defeat. The next morning, a reluctant Naruto could be seen walking alongside Rias as they made their way towards Naruto's nightmare, otherwise known as school. He was wearing a modified version of the Ko-Academy uniform, which consisted of a black blazer with white accents over a black and orange shirt instead of the usual white dress shirt, black pants, and black sneakers instead of the normal brown dress shoes. You realize I'm going to get you back for making me do this, right? Naruto threatened, earning a laugh out of the redhead, who just continued to smile. She definitely has a nice smile. Even if it is because she's making me suffer, he lamented. You're definitely a devil. I'll take that as a compliment, she answered back quickly as they made their way through the front gate. They had barely made it 2 steps before Naruto could already hear people whispering about him. While he wasn't sure how to handle the girls commenting on him being roguishly handsome, he was sure the death threats he was getting from the boys for being so close to Rias were going to be a nuisance. Not that he was worried in the slightest, but dealing with them would be annoying. I made sure you had the same schedule as me, so you can just follow me to your classes and I'll give you a tour of the campus later. Rias told him, paying no mind to the gossip and rumors that were already flying around. So how many hours a day do I have to do this? Naruto asked, and instantly deflated when she told him it was about 8 hours. Yep, definitely switching with a clone the first chance I get, he nodded to himself, having made his decision. And I would prefer you actually attended your classes for today at least, she interrupted his thoughts as she subtly referred to his use of clones. What, are you a damn mind reader too? No, but you can be very easy to read at times, she giggled as they arrived at their classroom. Sighing in resignation, he agreed to at least attend his classes himself for today. What's the worst that could happen? I didn't think it could be worse than the academy, but I was wrong, very, very wrong. Naruto grumbled from his spot, lying face down on the rooftop while Rias and Okinawa stood nearby, clearly drawing some sort of sadistic pleasure from his misery. It was currently lunchtime and the 3 third-year students had made their way to the rooftop shortly after the bell signaling the end of class had rung. Seriously, when the hell am I going to need to know all those stupid math formulas or who ran the country hundreds of years ago? Naruto continued his rant as he rolled over onto his back and watched the clouds. Don't worry, you'll get used to it eventually, Okinawa commented with an amused giggle. Yeah, she was definitely enjoying his misery. Is that supposed to be comforting? 'Cause it's not in the slightest. Oh, quit moping and come have some lunch, Rias said as she held out a bento for him. Hearing his stomach rumble in agreement, Naruto got up before sitting on the side of Rias opposite of Okinawa. Opening the box once Rias handed it to him, Naruto was impressed by how well made it was. Did you make this yourself? Naruto asked Rias, who nodded her head as she ate a bite of rice, taking his chopsticks and picking up a piece of tamagoyaki and placing it in his mouth. Naruto's eyes instantly lit up as he began shoveling food into his mouth like he hadn't eaten in weeks. I take it you approve? Rias giggled as she picked a piece of rice from his cheek. Naruto nodded his head as he finished what was left of the lunch that Rias made for him. Rias wore an amused expression as she ate her lunch with the grace of a princess. You're an awesome cook, Rias, Naruto complimented sincerely, getting a slight blush and a thank you in return. Era, are you blushing, Bucho? Okinawa teased with a smirk, earning a glare from Rias while Naruto just watched with a completely oblivious expression. Shut up, Okinawa, Rias growled with a slight flicker of red energy covering her hand. The tense atmosphere was broken by the sound of the bell ringing to signal the end of their lunch break. Okinawa got up and made her way towards the door with the amused smirk never leaving her face. See you later, Bucho, you too, Naruto-kun, she waved as she disappeared through the doorway. Naruto continued to wear a confused expression before looking down to see Rias pouting cutely, and couldn't hold back his laughter. Mao, stop laughing, Naruto-kun, Rias demanded as she continued to pout. Naruto held his hands up in surrender, but continued to laugh at Rias's puffed-up cheeks and pouting lips. Rias glared as red energy once again began to collect in her hands. Deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, Naruto quickly made his way for the door before he could find out firsthand exactly what that attack could do. Issei was on his way home when he bumped into a girl with long, blonde hair and bright green eyes that was dressed in an outfit that reminded Issei of a nun. Sorry about that, I wasn't paying attention where I was going, he apologized as he held his hand out to her. The girl took his hand and was hoisted to her feet before she bowed her head. No, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I was lost and wasn't looking. I've been trying to find the church for a while now, but haven't been having any luck, the girl frowned. So, are you a tourist or something? Issei asked, earning a shake of the head. No, I was recently assigned to the church in this town, the girl answered. Issei flinched when his eyes met the cross that was dangling from her neck. So you're a nun then, that would explain the uniform. Once the pair approached the church, Issei felt a chill run through his body as his left hand tensed up. Thank you for escorting me here. My name is Asia Argento, she introduced herself with a bow. And my name's Issei Hayato. It was nice meeting you, Issei answered with a smile before they went their separate ways. I want you to stay away from that girl, Issei. For devils, the church is enemy territory and could cause problems for all of us, Rias explained, earning a frown from Issei. Not to mention it's very risky due to members of the church usually possessing light-based weapons which are highly toxic to us devils, and if an exorcist performs a devil purge, it's permanent. There's no coming back from that. I understand, Issei sighed. I'm not trying to lecture you, I just want you to be more careful. Rias finished before Kaneko came in and took her usual spot on the couch, followed by Kiba, who remained standing near the doorway. Now that we're all here, we have a job to do tonight, Rias informed them. This doesn't have anything to do with flyers, right? Naruto asked with a grimace at the thought of those stupid flyers. It was dark out by the time he had finished passing the stupid things out. No, Naruto-kun, it's actually a job to exterminate a stray devil, which will give me the perfect opportunity to explain the different evil pieces, Rias explained, earning a nod from Naruto and a confused expression from Issei. What's a stray devil? A stray devil is a reincarnated devil that has turned on or even killed their master, Rias answered. So basically a missing nin. Naruto made the comparison to the equivalent from his world. So we're supposed to go kill them? Issei asked, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of killing someone. Correct. The stray devil we'll be going after is named Visser, and has been luring various humans to her hideout, and eating them. Eating them? Stray devils actually eat people? Issei asked as his face looked a disturbing shade of green, and he seemed to be fighting back the urge to vomit. Not all of them, but some do, Rias answered as she made her way to the circle that was carved into the ground in the middle of the room that they had been told was used for transportation. Once everyone had gathered in the circle, the runes glowed with magic before the group of devils vanished in a flash of light. So this is where that stray devil has been hanging out, huh? Naruto asked rhetorically as he looked at the old, decrepit manor that screamed haunted house. Definitely seems like the stereotypical type of place for a monster to hide, Naruto said with a shrug as he and the others made their way into the building. I'd have to agree. It's certainly not the most inconspicuous place to hide, Kiba responded before they all gagged at the smell that assaulted them as soon as they made it into the main hall. Issei was unable to hold it back any longer, as he turned away and vomited until he was sure there was nothing left in his stomach. Nice, Naruto commented dryly with a flat look before turning when he heard movement to the right. Quickly drawing a kunai in each hand, he narrowed his eyes on the slight movement he could see in the darkness. Let us handle this, Naruto-kun. Rias placed a hand on his shoulder making Naruto nod and put his kunai away. Stray devil Visser, you've been charged with killing your king and murdering innocent humans, and have been given an order for extermination. Oh how nice, you brought your little toys for me to play with, a female voice said as a figure slowly stepped into the moonlight to show the upper body of a woman that looked like she was in her early to mid-30s and was wearing nothing to cover her breasts, which made Issei let out a cry of earning a roll of the eyes from Naruto, a sigh from Rias, an awkward chuckle from Kiba and a glare from Kaneko. Akino just seemed to find it amusing. I gotta say Red, the brown-haired one isn't much to look at, but the blondes are definitely getting me going if you know what I mean, Visser said as she looked between Kiba and Naruto and licked her lips. Do you three ever have some fun? Maybe some double penetration or spit roast you like, Kiba, Rias interrupted, earning a nod from the blonde before he vanished in a burst of speed, earning a stunned look from Issei, who could barely see him moving, but Naruto was able to follow him easily, having fought plenty of people who moved at much higher speeds. He was more focused on the disturbing image of the thing that had stepped into the light because it could in no way be called a person. Aside from her human-like upper body, Visser's lower half consisted of what looked like a spider with a snake for a tail. Watch closely you two and I'll explain the different types of evil pieces, Rias said, drawing the attention of her two newest members. Kiba is a knight, and therefore receives a significant boost to his speed. Kiba also has a sacred gear called Sword Birth that allows him to create a seemingly infinite amount of weapons, and is able to make just about any type of sword you could think of. As if to emphasize her point, Kiba manifested a sword in each hand, one that seemed to be made of fire, and the other ice. Kiba quickly cut off the front two legs of the beastly woman before reappearing before the rest of them, earning a scream of pain from Visser. Without needing to be told, Kaneko made her way into the fray to show what she could do, tightening the gloves she was wearing along the way. Kaneko-chan is a rook. Rooks have increased strength and durability, Rias explained further as Kaneko grabbed Visser by the tail and began swinging her around effortlessly with no regard for anything that was in the way, whether it be a wall, or even one of the support pillars. After throwing the stray through another wall and into the next room, Kaneko stepped back to give Akino a turn. Akino had apparently changed her outfit without them noticing at some point because she was now wearing what looked like a shrine maiden's outfit. My bishop is unable to be here at the moment, but they receive an increase in their magic reserves. Akino here is my queen. While not quite to the extent of the other pieces, she receives a boost to her speed, strength and magic. Loud screams suddenly filled the air as Visser was struck by a large bolt of lightning. The screams continued and even grew louder as Akino repeated the process while biting her lower lip and moaning. Holy shit, she's as bad as Anko. Naruto thought aloud as he took an uncomfortable step back. Rias raised an eyebrow at the unfamiliar name, but assumed it was somebody he knew back home and set the thought aside for another time. Making her way back towards Rias, Akino didn't notice the slight buildup of magic as Visser used what little energy she had left to fire a blast of magic at her turn back from. Look out! Issei called out, but his warning was unnecessary as Naruto had already appeared behind the sadistic Ravenet and deflected the attack with a wind-enhanced kunai. Lasers? Seriously? Naruto deadpanned with a flat stare before looking back at Rias. Do you mind? Be my guest, Rias shrugged, earning a smirk from Naruto before he made a single clone and held his hand out. The others all watched as the somewhat familiar form of a Rasengan appeared in his hand, but then it began to change as what looked like the blades of a Fuma shuriken appeared along with a screeching sound and a wind that was continually blowing their hair back. You guys might want to back up a bit, Naruto called out as he dismissed his clone. Heeding the warning, the others stepped back to a safe distance before Naruto leapt upwards onto the railing of the second floor. Game over, crazy lady, Rasen shuriken. Naruto called out before releasing his attack, which screeched through the air at high speeds before striking its target, and exploded with a flash of white and all the force of a hurricane as Visser was ripped to shreds at a molecular level by the microscopic blades of wind until there was nothing left. Seeing that the job was done, Naruto dropped back down and wiped himself off. Well, that was fun, he said with a smile as he stared at the dumbfounded expressions of those around him, except for Akino, who was staring at him with a heavy blush and a disturbing look in her eyes. Oh my, it's almost like your power of destruction, Bucho. There's nothing left. Akino spoke cheerfully, earning a hesitant nod from Rias, who was still amazed to see a technique that could possibly rival her family's power in terms of destructive force. Was that like your ultimate attack or something? Issei finally managed to get out once the amazement wore off. Naruto put a hand to his chin as he thought about it for a moment. No, I'd say that was actually a fairly weak version, all things considered. There's stronger versions of it to consider, plus I wasn't using Sage Mode or Kurama's chakra, so if I had to put a number to it, I'd probably say that one was 2% maybe? Naruto mused thoughtfully with a casual shrug. 2%? Hearing a thumping sound, Naruto turned to see an unconscious Issei lying on the ground, and unfortunately for him, though Naruto found it hilarious, the boy had landed in his vomit from earlier. Once Issei had regained consciousness and cleaned himself off from his impromptu faceplant in his own vomit, the group reconvened at the clubroom. So now that that's all out of the way, what pieces are the perv and I? Naruto asked, ignoring the indignant hey from aforementioned pervert. Setting her tea down, Rias turned to address both of them. Issei is my pawn, Rias informed, making Issei let out a dejected sigh and lower his head. So basically I'm cannon fodder, he grumbled. Not at all, Issei. Pawns are actually very useful and have the ability to gain the traits of any other piece besides the king by using their ability called promotion when in an area that is designated as enemy territory, Rias explained before taking another sip of tea. Also, you are my only pawn. I had to use all 8 of my pawns in order for me to resurrect you. That certainly improved his mood as Issei puffed his chest out in pride. So what does that make me then? Naruto asked with a raised brow. Technically you're a rook, but the piece I used on you was special. On rare occasions, when a high-class devil gets their set of evil pieces, one of them might mutate. We call these mutation pieces, and the rook I used on you was a mutated rook. However, according to the creator of the evil pieces, Lord Ajuka Beelzebub, your piece was unusual even by the standards of a mutation piece. Naruto nodded along with the explanation to show he understood. So what makes these mutation pieces so special? He asked as he thought over the various ways to use the attributes of a rook to his advantage. Well, in addition to the normal attributes that the piece enhances, mutation pieces also tend to give other enhancements. But there's no way of knowing exactly what benefits the mutation will give. It could be increased speed, increased magic, or even something else entirely that's completely unique and unrelated to the other pieces. In other words, it could be something similar to a Kekkai Genkai. I just have to figure out what it is, Naruto thought with a smirk, as he remembered the multitude of things his friends could all do with their clan's various Kekkai Genkai. On that note, I'm gonna go get some sleep. See you at home, Rias. Naruto waved before vanishing in a swirl of wind. I assume that was a ninja thing, but what did he mean he'd see you at home, Bucho? Issei asked, getting a sly grin from Akino as she winked at Rias. One brief explanation later. You're living together? Issei shouted in disbelief as he internally cursed his fellow peerage member for being a lucky bastard. That is correct, Rias responded to the exclamation. Considering Naruto-kun's unusual circumstances, he needed a place to live. I believe it would be best if we went home for the night and reconvened tomorrow. Rias dismissed before making her way to the transportation circle and disappearing in a flash of light. Sitting on his bed with his eyes closed, Naruto was attempting to reach out to Kurama once again, but wasn't having any luck. However, he did notice something that was somewhat troubling. He could still feel Kurama's chakra, but it seemed to be funneling into his own chakra coils at an alarming rate. Kurama, what happened? He thought sadly before lying down to get some rest. So the perv got his ass handed to him by some psycho stray exorcist, eh? Naruto asked from his position lounging on the couch in the ORC clubroom after Rias explained what had happened. More or less, Rias answered as she sat down beside him. The stray exorcist is apparently working with the fallen angels that have been in the area. I'm sure we'll have to deal with that situation in the near future, she sighed. As if to prove her point, Issei charged into the room claiming that his new nun friend was taken by the fallen angels. We have to save her. Issei clenched his fists tightly. I'm sorry, Issei, but Akino and I have other business to tend to, Rias informed him as she and her queen made their way to the transportation circle. Remember this well, Issei. As you are now, there's no way you'd be able to take on a fallen angel by yourself. And with those parting words, Rias and Akino vanished. We'll see about that, Issei mumbled as he made his way towards the door. Well, I've got nothing better to do, Naruto called out as he hopped over the back of the couch he was lounging on. I might as well tag along. Wait, you'll help me, Naruto-senpai? Issei asked in shock as he turned to the blonde ninja. Naruto shrugged as he placed his hand on Issei's shoulder and smiled. Sure, we're a team, right? Besides, you heard Rias. She said you couldn't do it by yourself, but with me, we'll have all the manpower we could ever need, Naruto said in reference to his shadow clones. Count me in as well, Kiba cut in with a sword at his side. Kaneko nodded her agreement as she put on her gloves. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's do this, Issei declared as he ran out the door. This guy is supposed to be a priest? Naruto deadpanned at the silver-haired stray exorcist who had a mouth more foul than anyone he had ever met, and gave off a major rapey vibe. As hard as it is to believe, yes, Kiba agreed as he shook his head at the absurd amount of profanity Freed Selzen was spewing out. You guys can leave him to me and go on ahead, he said as he brandished his sword which began to turn pitch black. If you say so, Naruto shrugged before kicking over the podium at the front of the room. Let's go, perv, Naruto called back as he jumped into the opening that led beneath the church. Stop calling me that. Issei growled as he and Kaneko followed after him. Well, that was fun, Akino grinned as she and Rias finished off the fallen angels outside of the church. All that remained of the three of them was black feathers that were scattered throughout the area. Come along, Akino. Let's go check on my cute little servants and see how they're doing inside. Ufufu, right behind you, Bucho. I take it the blonde on the glowing cross is your nun friend? Naruto asked rhetorically before Issei charged forward with a cry of Asia. Once the girl ceased all movement after the fallen angel beside her had apparently extracted a pair of silver rings from the girl that were glowing with a faint green light. As a large group of exorcists began to converge on them, Naruto made several clones as he and Kaneko moved to intercept them. Go ahead and play with your little girlfriend over there, Kaneko, and I can handle the cannon fodder, Naruto told Issei as he drew a kunai and sliced his way through them with ease. Giving a brief thanks, Issei brandished his sacred gear and charged at the fallen angel named Rainer. You bitch! Give Asia back to me! Issei yelled as he charged at Rainer, earning a pair of light spears through his legs for his troubles. In response to his strong feelings, Issei's sacred gear seemed to go through an evolution of some sort as it spread to encompass his fingers in the shape of claws and the armor, further encompassed his arm until it reached his elbow. Rainer took a step back in fear at the sudden transformation before attempting to fly away. Before she could get very far, Issei grabbed her by the ankle and struck her in the face with a devastating left hook that launched her through the nearby stained glass window. Shortly thereafter, Naruto and Rias made their way back into the church from the basement, having met up on the way. Kicking the front door open, Kaneko tossed the crumpled form of Rainer back into the church. After a brief explanation that Issei's sacred gear was not actually a twice critical like the fallen angel thought, but was in fact one of the 13 top-tier sacred gears known as Longinus called boosted gear, Rainer took on her persona as Yuma Amano in order to play on Issei's emotions and beg for her life. Yeah, that's enough of that, Naruto said, seeing the pained look on Issei's face before appearing behind the fallen angel with blue lightning dancing along his arm as the room was filled with the cacophony of 1,000 birds chirping. Here's a little trick I borrowed from a friend of mine, Chidori, he called out as he drove his arm straight through the fallen angel, until it burst from her chest where her heart would be in a shower of blood. Rainer was unable to so much as utter a word as she crumpled lifelessly to the floor. Mind handling the clean-up, Rias? Naruto asked as he removed his arm and let the lightning magic that was encasing it dissipate. I see you've been practicing your magic. That was a pretty impressive technique, Rias commented before unleashing a wave of her power of destruction to dispose of Rainer's body. What can I say? I'm a fast learner. Naruto shrugged as he snagged the rings that signified the sacred gear that had been stolen from the nun before handing them to Issei. Why don't you return those to their rightful owner? Issei nodded somberly as he made his way to the lifeless body of his friend that was resting on one of the nearby pews. Placing the rings on her fingers, Issei lowered his head as tears once again began streaming down his cheeks. Placing a hand on Issei's shoulder, Rias pulled a chess piece from her pocket as she approached the deceased nun. Why don't we welcome the dear sister into our family? Rias asked rhetorically before placing the bishop on her chest and began muttered her incantation. After the usual flash of light, Asia's eyes slowly blinked open before Issei enveloped her in a hug. Now that that's out of the way, who's up for some ramen? Naruto interjected with a bright grin. Sounds good to me, Kiba agreed, followed by the others giving various forms of agreement. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or concerned by the amount of ramen you can eat, Rias commented from her position lying on the bed while Naruto was on the floor nearby wearing only a pair of boxers as he did one-handed push-ups while a clone was sitting on his back reading. Rias watched his muscles continue to expand and contract with the movements. Ramen is the food of the gods. I could eat it all day every day, and it still wouldn't be enough, Naruto declared passionately as he dispelled his clone and hopped to his feet with his hands in the air. Rias giggled at her rook's antics as he sat next to another clone who was currently reading a book detailing the functions of various magic circles and runes. Setting your unusual eating habits aside, I'm amazed by the usefulness of your clone technique. So you really receive the memories of anything they learn or experience? Naruto nodded his head as he began cleaning and sharpening his kunai. By the way, Naruto began as he set aside one kunai and replaced it with another. Not that I'm complaining, but why are you in my room? Naruto asked as he glanced at the girl lounging on his bed. I was lonely, Rias replied nonchalantly as she moved to sit on the edge of the bed. It should also be noted that she was wearing nothing but her underwear, which would be classified more as lingerie than anything else since her bra was a lacy black number that was basically transparent, and she was wearing a matching black thong that left very little to the imagination. So are those your only weapons? Rias asked, gesturing to the kunai in his hands, earning a shake of the head from Naruto in response. No, I just haven't felt like anything else was necessary at this point, he pointed out before putting his kunai away. It's getting pretty late. Don't you think we should get to bed? Naruto asked after dismissing his clone. By all means, feel free to join me, Rias answered as she stripped off her bra and thong and retook her previous position lying on her side on the bed. But this is my room, Naruto answered flatly with a blank expression, earning a giggle from Rias in return. You know I'm just going to come back in here after you fall asleep anyway, so why not make things easier? Naruto sighed in defeat, knowing by this point that that's exactly what she would do. Right. I'd been reduced to being a glorified teddy bear, Naruto lamented as he gave in and took his place on the bed. Rias quickly wrapped her arms around his neck as she pressed her breasts into his back. Look at it this way. At least you won't get cold, she said as she draped one of her legs over his. Let's just get some sleep, Naruto grumbled as he hid the furious blush that he was sure had spread all the way to his ears. Rias giggled as she whispered good night before closing her eyes and going to sleep. Chapter 3. Getting familiar. So we'll be getting our own familiars? Naruto asked from his position hanging from the ceiling. That's correct. Next week is the full moon and it's the only time we'll be able to go to the familiar forest, Rias answered, completely ignoring the behavior of their resident ninja. Any further explanation was cut off by a group of students entering the room while being led by a girl with dark hair and a bob cut with red-framed glasses. What's up, Prez? Naruto spoke up casually, earning a startled response from the dirty blonde-haired boy with the group. What the how the heck are you doing that? The same boy demanded once he got over his surprise. Fuck you, that's how, Naruto answered with a smirk as he dropped from the ceiling and landed gracefully. The now identified student council president pushed her glasses up her nose with a sigh as she responded to the informal greeting. Hello, Uzumaki-san, I trust you've been keeping yourself out of trouble? She asked, paying no mind to the rude comment directed toward her companion. Naruto gave a dismissive shrug, neither confirming nor denying his behavior. I wasn't aware that you two were so familiar with each other already, Rias commented as she gave Naruto a pointed stare, which he returned with a sheepish expression. It's good to see you again, Sona. Likewise, she greeted in turn. And I wouldn't exactly say Uzumaki-san and I were familiar. I've merely had to reprimand him a few times after several incidents. Sona answered the unasked question of how they knew each other. Naruto meanwhile was looking away while whistling a merry tune. From there, Rias and Sona went on to introduce their peerage members. So this delinquent and that perverted D-bag are your new pieces? I have to question your taste, Rias, the boy who was introduced as Saji commented. What was that? You wanna say that to my face, you son of a bitch? Issei retorted with a threatening step forward, which Saji matched with one of his own. The pair of pawns continued to trade insults for a short while before both began to throw a punch, but were interrupted when Naruto appeared between them and casually caught their fists. Mama, settle down, children, there's no need to get violent, right? Naruto punctuated his question with a slight tightening of his fists, which caused several cracking sounds to echo through the room as Issei and Saji both gasped in pain before cradling their hands, which undoubtedly had several broken bones. Was that really necessary? Rias asked with a raised eyebrow. It got them to stop, didn't it? Anyway, was there something I could help you with, Sona? I was just telling my new members that we would be going to get their familiars next week, Rias said, making Sona adjust her glasses. That's unfortunate. I was planning on taking Saji and he only takes one group at a time. How about we settle things with a contest, Rias suggested. Surely you don't mean a rating game, Sona replied. Of course not. There's no way we could get approval for that. Rias denied. Yes, you're right. Besides, this isn't the best time to call attention to yourself now, is it? Rias immediately glared at Sona after that statement. Don't go there. Naruto narrowed his eyes, setting the unusual comment and reaction aside for later. How about we settle this like normal high schoolers with sports, Rias suggested. Sounds like fun. Can this really be considered tennis? Naruto inquired to the blonde knight beside him, who chuckled nervously at the sight of Rias and Akino playing against Sona and Tsubaki in a game of tennis gone awry as they continued to blatantly use magic, heedless of the crowd of students watching. It's a good thing we can alter memories, because otherwise I think we'd have a serious problem on our hands, Naruto commented as Kiba and Issei nodded their agreement, seeing the destroyed tennis rackets and scorch marks covering the tennis court. Since nobody won, it's been decided we'll decide things with a team match. Sona and I came to the decision we would be playing dodgeball, Rias explained once they had all made it back to the clubroom. Dodgeball, huh, should be fun, Naruto smirked. Later that night saw Issei approaching the room that had been designated as Asia's room at his house before knocking on the door. Asia opened the door a short time later with a confused look on her face. Issei? What are you doing up so late? Did you need something? She asked as she tilted her head cutely at the brown-haired boy at her door. Sorry, I know it's late, but do you have a need and thread I could borrow? Sure, but what do you need them for? I'd be happy to help. Issei quickly waved her off, telling her it was a secret. Asia frowned, but gave him the needle and thread as requested. Thanks, Asia. I'll see you in the morning, he thanked before making his way to his own room. Asia frowned as she watched him walk away before going back into her room to get some sleep. Team headbands? Rias questioned as Issei handed out strips of cloth that said Occult Research Club that he had made. Yeah, I wanted to make something to say thanks for everything you guys have done, so I stayed up all night making those. Plus, I suck at sports, so now I'll know who not to hit, Issei explained. Nicely done, Kiba commented as he put on the headband, getting words of agreement from Akino and Kaneko. Well, this brings back memories, Naruto mumbled as he looked over the headband and lightly brushed the engraved metal plate that he kept in his pocket. While nobody else seemed to catch the statement, or the fact he was fondling something in his pocket, Rias did and made a mental note to ask about it later. Alright, let's do this, Issei exclaimed once everyone had on their headbands. Yeah, This is fun, Naruto commented as he performed a flawless replacement technique to keep Asia from being hit before catching the ball and unleashing it with devastating force at Tsubaki, and while the queen did an admirable job of trying to hold it back, it wasn't enough as the ball tore through her guard and launched her across the room. Whoops, my bad. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly before he broke out in a fit of laughter at seeing Issei take a direct hit in the crotch. I think this has gone from a game into an all-out war, Issei commented from his spot on the ground as magic continued to fly through the air while Asia tried to make sure his testicles weren't squished into a paste. Everything came to a halt as the sound of a whistle blowing signaled the end of the game and Naruto stood victoriously with the ball spinning ominously on his index finger. Anybody up for a round 2? He asked with a vicious smirk, earning groans of disapproval from his unfortunate victims. Looks like we win, Naruto said as he and Rias high-fived since they were the last ones standing. Now we'll be able to get you 3 your familiars. Rias smiled at Naruto, Issei and Asia, who all gave various expressions of excitement. Where are we? "'Cause I think I just pissed myself a little," Issei asked as they came out of the transportation circle into a dark, creepy forest. "This is the forest where the familiars reside," Akino answered helpfully. After a short walk, they met up with Tsuji, the familiar master, who was going to drive Naruto insane if he didn't stop with the cheesy rhymes. After a rather disturbing encounter with a water sprite called an Undine that looked like a steroid-fueled bodybuilder, the group continued their way through the forest while Issei and Naruto wore expressions that showed they were clearly nauseous from their last encounter. The group turned when Asia let out a startled scream and saw green slime raining down from the treetops. Issei's eyes seemed to sparkle in delight when he noticed that the slime was disintegrating any clothing it came in contact with. He looked over to see that Akino and Kaneko were similarly covered in the glorious slime while Kiba had some covering his eyes, but Rias was nowhere to be seen. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," the redhead smiled at her rook who had used a clone to perform a substitution with her as soon as he noticed the slime. "Don't mention it. I kinda did it by instinct, I guess." He scratched his nose nervously with a slight dusting of pink crossing his cheeks. "Oh come on, that's just cruel, senpai." Issei lamented at being denied the sight of Rias's, but quickly recovered as he returned to ogling the bare flesh of his other club members in front of him. His joy was short-lived however as a small blue dragon came down and vaporized the slime with a burst of blue-tinged lightning. "No!" Issei cried as he fell to his knees in despair. "You evil dragon!" Issei yelled at the small blue dragon that had landed on Asia's shoulder. The sprite dragon's response was to assault Issei with another blast of lightning. "As interesting as this has been, I'm gonna keep looking around," Naruto waved off as he leapt into the surrounding foliage. "Now then, let's see what I can find," Naruto mused as he leapt from tree to tree in search of a suitable familiar. Any further thought was interrupted when Naruto had to jump to the side to avoid a massive jaw that clamped down on his previous position. Turning to see what had attacked him, Naruto was shocked to see a massive, gray wolf that was at least 5 times his height, and was releasing a low growl as he stared at Naruto. "Easy there, big guy, no need to get so angry. I'm just passing through." Naruto raised his hands in a peaceful gesture as the beast continued to stare him down. "I don't care, you intruded on my territory." The wolf spoke with a growl, making Naruto's eyes widen at the fact that it could speak before he was forced to dodge another attempt to turn him into a meal. "Fine. If that's the way you want it," Naruto shot back as he created a multitude of clones. While some went on the assault and rained down upon the wolf with a series of Raisengans, others were seen in the lotus position with their eyes closed. Once one of them dispelled, Naruto felt the flood of natural energy enter his system as he narrowed his now red eyes at the wolf. "Down, boy!" Naruto yelled as he grabbed the wolf by its tail with a senjutsu-enhanced grip and swung it around before slamming it into the ground as several trees were uprooted, and a large crater formed at the point of impact. Naruto held his stance as the dust settled to view the results of his assault. It was only thanks to his enhanced senses that he was able to evade the large paw that suddenly swung at him before the beast leapt from the crater it was left in with a snarl. Seeing it in the moonlight, it was clear that he did not come away uninjured as he was strongly favoring his right side when he walked, and blood dripped from his mouth. "I'm impressed. You're the first one that's been able to wound me like this since my father," the beast panted before collapsing onto his belly. "I'll take that as a compliment, I guess. You gonna be alright?" Naruto asked, earning a deep, rumbling laugh from the down beast. "I tried to kill you and you're concerned about my health? You're certainly a strange one," the creature commented, making Naruto shrug. "So I've been told," Naruto responded as he thought over the other times he'd been told something similar before sitting down in front of the colossal wolf. "So what's your name?" "Mine's Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki." "You really don't know who I am, boy?" the wolf asked with what Naruto could only assume was an expression of disbelief. "No, should I?" Naruto asked, earning another deep chuckle. "I am Fenrir, the god-devouring wolf, firstborn of the Norse god, Loki," Fenrir introduced, earning a raised eyebrow from Naruto at the great wolf's lineage. "So does that mean your dad is into bestiality or something?" Fenrir stared at Naruto blankly for a prolonged period of time before finally breaking out into a fit of laughter. "I like you, kid," Fenrir stated once he had managed to calm himself down. "Why don't we make one of those familiar packs you devils seem so fond of?" he asked, surprising Naruto greatly. "Seriously? You want to be my familiar?" Fenrir gave what he assumed amounted to a shrug. "Why not? It could be fun." "Awesome, but before that, let's see if we can fix you up a bit, Naruto said before jumping onto Fenrir's back to get closer to his wounded leg. I'm not as good as my godmother with this sort of thing, but with Senjutsu I should still be able to take care of this easily enough. With his hands aglow with chakra, Naruto made quick work of all of the wounds he was able to locate before releasing his Sage mode. Well, that's certainly a neat trick, Fenrir noted as he stood up and stretched his legs out. Noticing that there didn't seem to be any residual pain or other issues, he gave Naruto a nod. Now then, before we make a pact, how would you feel about scaring the shit out of some people? Naruto asked with a devious smirk. Fenrir gave a short huff of laughter in response. Kid, we're gonna get along just fine. Where the hell did that bastard run off to? Issei growled as they continued their search for Naruto. Kiba tried to calm the brown-haired boy down, but only managed to get an annoyed grunt for his troubles. A deafening roar suddenly split the air, causing them to look around in alarm. What the hell was that? Issei asked the familiar master, who was shaking like a leaf as the ground began to tremble, as if some sort of massive creature was moving in their direction. Good luck with that beast. Don't let him make you into a feast. Zatuji shouted as he made a mad dash in the opposite direction. Get back here, you coward! Issei shouted after the man before the approaching sounds seemed to be getting very close and they could begin to see some movement through the trees before a massive creature broke through the last of the trees and let out another mighty roar that knocked them off of their feet. Looking up to see the massive jaws that were hanging over him, Issei let out a high-pitched shriek before promptly passing out. Just as the others prepared to defend themselves from the sight of the beast known to be able to even kill gods or dragons with his fangs, they were cut off by the sound of Fenrir's boisterous laughter. You were right. The brown-haired one is definitely amusing, he said, drawing confused looks from the others until a familiar figure made himself known from his position seated on the great wolf's head. I told you. He's great for comic relief, Naruto said before jumping down to the ground with the rest of his group. Sup? He greeted casually with a wave while the others, sans Issei who was still unconscious, stared at him in disbelief. I still can't believe you managed to make Fenrir your familiar. You really do have the devil's luck, Rias told him as she nudged him with her foot from her position seated on the edge of the bed while he continued to practice his control of lightning magic. This sort of thing tends to happen to me a lot for some reason, so I guess I've just gotten used to it, Naruto answered while Rias continued to occasionally poke him with her foot. I'm not sure if it's a good thing to have become desensitized to that sort of thing, Eep. Rias yelped when Naruto cut her off by hooking his arms behind her knees and dragging her off of the bed onto the floor with him. Well, you've gotten my attention. Now what, mistress? Naruto whispered huskily as he knelt over Rias with a smirk as her cheeks flushed. Oh god, I think Okinawa is starting to rub off on me. I'm having way too much fun with this. While he was having his internal debate, Rias seemed to call his bluff as she leaned up so their faces were mere centimeters apart, and placed a hand on his cheek. Oh Naruto-kun, you should know better than to tease your master, she whispered before giving him a quick peck on the cheek and pushing him back so that she could get up and make her way out of the room. Naruto blinked his eyes owlishly as he tried to comprehend what just happened until Rias's laughter finally snapped him out of it. Oh, it is on! Naruto growled as he vanished in a shunshin before tackling a surprised Rias onto her bed and held her arms above her head. Rias's eyes widened at his sudden appearance before she found herself once again beneath the young ninja. She could feel her heart beating rapidly as she looked up at his expressive blue eyes that had begun to bleed into red and his toothy grin. You done goofed, Naruto told her as he used the hand not holding hers to let his fingers glide sensually over her bare stomach. Rias's shivered at the slight touch as his fingers moved tantalizingly close to her brock-clad breasts. Feeling warmth spread through her body, Rias attempted to break his hold on her hands, but he maintained his grip as he continued to tease the girl beneath him. Seeing Rias's flushed cheeks and the increased rising and falling of her chest, Naruto decided that was enough and leapt back with his fanged smirk still in place. Good night, Rias, he said before vanishing again in another shunshin. Rias stared in disbelief at the spot her mischievous rook had been occupying before it fully sank and that he had worked her up so that he could leave her hot and bothered. You are so dead! Rias growled as red energy poured out of her, and she took off down the hall to find Naruto and teach him a lesson. Damn, you look like hell, senpai, Issei commented as he entered the room to see Naruto with a black eye and a definitive handprint occupying his cheek. Totally worth it, Naruto smirked at a pouting Rias who glared at him before turning away with a huff. Akino gave what was supposed to be a demure giggle, but came off more like a fiendish chuckle considering the amount of sadistic glee she was taking from the situation. So what happened? Issei finally asked. Nothing major, just a little game that got a bit out of hand, Naruto waved dismissively, putting an end to the conversation. You two certainly seem to be getting along well, Akino told Rias, who ignored her queen in favor of sipping the tea that she had been given. Grafia contacted me earlier. She'll be coming to discuss the arrangements, Akino whispered, making Rias's eyes narrow before she set her tea down and took a deep breath to calm herself. Naruto had managed to hear what Akino had said, and judging from her reaction, Rias wasn't too pleased about it. I wonder what that's all about, Naruto mused as he leapt off of the couch. Well, I've got a contract to get to, so I'll catch you all later, Naruto waved before vanishing in a shunshin instead of using the transportation circle. Rias stared blankly at where her rook had been standing without showing any sign of emotion. I guess it's almost time. Thanks for coming, Naruto, A man with short, black hair standing at 5 feet 11 inches that appeared to be in his 40s greeted as he shook Naruto's hand. "Hey Koji, what'll it be this time?" Naruto asked as he followed the older man into the kitchen. "I figured we could switch it up with some beef," he responded as he motioned to the 20 cups of steaming ramen separated evenly in front of 2 chairs. "Today is the day I finally beat you," he declared as they sat down and prepared for their usual ramen eating contest. "In your dreams, old man," Naruto taunted as they grabbed their chopsticks and prepared to dig in. "Ready, Gio?" And with that, the two of them began slurping down noodles at a fervent pace before gulping down the broth by the mouthful. The race seemed to be fairly close, with the raven-haired man keeping pace with Naruto. But it wasn't enough, as while Koji was starting on his last cup of noodles, Naruto finished off the last of his portion before letting out a burp and pumping his fist in victory. "Damn," Koji sighed in defeat while Naruto patted him on the back. "Don't feel bad. Nobody can match me when it comes to ramen," Naruto declared with absolute certainty, earning a roll of the eyes from his companion. "Sorry for always summoning you just to have ramen with me, but it's hard to find people who can truly appreciate the glory of ramen." "Don't worry about it," Naruto waved the man off with a smile. "I'm always down for eating the food of the gods," he nodded sagely as if it were a fact. Koji nodded his agreement before the two made their way back to the living room. "I'll contact you again the next time I stock up," the man smirked as the two shook hands again, with Naruto saying he was looking forward to it before vanishing in a shunshin. "Totally my favorite contractor," Naruto mused as he made his way home. Naruto continued to use the towel in his hand to rub his hair dry as he stood in his room in his boxers, having just gotten out of the shower. Any further actions were interrupted when a red transportation circle appeared on the floor before he was suddenly tackled onto his bed by Rias, who was now straddling his waist. "Rias? What the hell are you doing? And why is there a barrier around the house?" Naruto asked, noticing the magic that had encompassed the house just after Rias's impromptu entrance. "Naruto, I need you to take my virginity, and I need you to do it now," Rias told him as she began to quickly strip out of her uniform. Naruto's eyes shot open in surprise as he tried to come to terms with what he had just been told. "Whoa, slow down, Rias. What's going on?" Naruto asked as he placed his hands on her shoulders while she was unbuttoning her shirt to stop her. "There's no time. I'm begging you. Please do this for me." Naruto frowned as he wiped away the tears that had begun to leak from her eyes. "I'm sorry, Rias, but I can't. I won't let you throw away your virginity like this." Naruto frowned with a shake of the head. "I don't know what's going on, but if this has something to do with what Akino said earlier, I'm sure there's another solution. Whatever it is, I promise I'll help you through it," he told her with a reassuring smile. Rias sighed in defeat as she rested her forehead against his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I shouldn't have pushed my problems on you like this," she apologized before buttoning her shirt and putting her uniform back on. Just as she was zipping up her skirt, an unfamiliar silver magic circle appeared on the floor before a beautiful woman with long silver hair wearing a maid outfit appeared. "Really, Lady Rias, is this how you plan to respond to this? By lying with this filthy lowborn?" The woman spoke in an elegant voice which may have been soothing, if it wasn't for the fact she was insulting him. Who the fuck are you calling a filthy lowborn?" Naruto snarled as the room was flooded with his potent chakra, making the apparent maid's eyes widen slightly to show her surprise. "Oh my, your new servant certainly seems to have quite the temper, Lady Rias." "That's enough, Grafia. I won't have you insulting my servants," Rias admonished as she finished reading her ribbon, earning a short apology from the older woman. "Please forgive my behavior," Rias whispered before giving him a kiss on the cheek. "I promise everything will be explained tomorrow." "Sure thing," Naruto responded in confusion before Rias vanished along with the silver-haired maid. What the hell was all that about? Naruto asked himself as he puzzled over the various comments and hints he had noticed lately, but couldn't come to any sort of solid conclusion. "I guess I'll just have to wait to find out." Chapter 4, Raiding Game? The next day, the ORC had all gathered in the clubroom after school, and Naruto was once again greeted to the sight of the maid from last night. Looking around the room, he could see that the other members who had been part of Rias's peerage longer than him seemed to have varying degrees of emotions, all of which hinting that something was very wrong. "So what's going on exactly?" Naruto asked, but before any explanation could be given, the room was illuminated by the light from an orange transportation circle before a blonde-haired man appeared in a flashy burst of flames before introducing himself in the third person as Riser. Naruto could practically smell the arrogance wafting off this asshole like a cheap cologne. "Okay, who's this douche?" Issei asked, beating Naruto the punch. "This is Riser Phoenix, a high-class devil from the noble house of Phoenix, and Lady Rias's fiancé," Grafia introduced, earning looks of surprise from Naruto, Issei and Asia having not known that Rias was engaged. "Fiancé?" Naruto and Issei both exclaimed. "You're joking, right?" Issei asked while Naruto narrowed his eyes in thought as he studied the pompous jackass before them. Rias and Riser were currently seated next to each other on one of the couches, with Rias looking none too pleased when the man began rubbing her thigh. "That's enough, Riser," Rias declared before standing up. "I have no intention of marrying you, so why can't you just give it a rest?" "But my beloved Rias, your family and Riser's family have long since agreed that this marriage is necessary for our kind due to the declining birth rate of high-class devils," Riser informed with a smirk. "Both your father and Sirzex decided on this engagement with the future of devils in mind. Exactly, they decided on this. I never agreed, and who I decide to take as a husband will be my choice, Rias affirmed with a calm facade. For the last time, I will never marry you, and for the final time, Rias, Riser bears the name of the noble house of Phoenix. Besmirching our good name is unacceptable, he glared as he grabbed Rias by the chin. That's enough of that, Naruto said as he grabbed Riser by the back of his shirt and tossed him onto the couch. I don't give a rat's ass who the hell you are. I won't let you prance around like a spoiled douchebag and do whatever you want, Naruto glared, earning a yeah of agreement from Issei. Riser returned the glare with one of his own as he was enveloped in an aura of flames. You dare touch Riser with those filthy low-class hands of yours? He growled, earning a smirk from Naruto. You're damn right I do, birdbrain. I practically made my living on beating down arrogant pricks like you, Naruto retorted as his arm was encased in blue lightning. And quit with the referring to yourself in the third-person shtick. It's annoying as fuck. Why you? That's quite enough, Graphia interrupted as the room suddenly became much colder. There's no call for violence, and if the two of you don't settle down I will have no choice but to intervene, Graphia threatened. If the ultimate queen says so, even Riser can become fearful and will have to back down. Riser shrugged as he sat back down on the couch. My master, Sirzex, has decided that if Lady Rias has chosen to continue to be obstinate in her decision, then the matter is to be settled via a rating game, Graphia informed, earning a confused look from Issei. What's a rating game? It's basically a simulated battle between devils to either settle disputes or showcase their power, Kiba explained. So you're saying I could pound this bastard's face in without repercussions? Naruto asked with a feral smirk showcasing his elongated fangs. Riser huffed in amusement at the statement, as if the younger blonde wasn't even worth his time. Don't make me laugh, boy. The Phoenix clan is known for our unsurpassed mastery of fire magic. You don't stand a chance against Riser. Care to make a little wager on that? Naruto responded with his smirk still firmly in place. Riser raised a brow in curiosity, showing that he was listening. If we win, not only will your engagement be called off, but you'll apologize to Rias for all the bullshit you've put her through and never bother her again. And if you lose? What does Riser get when he inevitably puts you in your place? I'll be your eternal slave and submit to your every command, Naruto offered, making everyone stare at him with wide eyes while earning a hum from Riser as he considered the offer. Interesting. Very well, Riser accepts your challenge, and with a snap of his fingers another magic circle appeared before 15 women, who Naruto assumed to be his peerage, appeared, and Issei began crying in jealousy for having his dream fulfilled by someone else. My dear, why is your servant looking at Riser and weeping uncontrollably? Riser asked Rias as he looked at Issei in disgust. Because his dream is to have a harem, Rias stated flatly, earning a chuckle from the arrogant blonde. Is that so? Come here, Eubelina, Riser commanded to his queen, who immediately heeded the command and approached her king. Riser grabbed the woman's chin and proceeded to basically shove his tongue down her throat in front of everyone, making Rias glare at him heatedly in disgust while Naruto growled at the blatant display. No matter how hard you try, low-class trash like you would never be able to have what I do, Riser smirked at Issei while fondling his queen's breast. Graphia, inform my brother that we agree to the game, Rias informed the Silverette, who nodded her understanding. Very well then, Riser will see you at the game. And since I'm so generous, I'll even give you 10 days to prepare your servants. You're gonna regret that decision, birdbrain, Naruto sneered. Riser ignored the comment with a wave over his shoulder before vanishing in a burst of flames. I still can't believe Naruto ditched us like that instead of coming with us to train, Issei grumbled while panting for air. Don't worry about the boss. He has his own preparations to make, one of Naruto's shadow clones informed him. Yeah, we'll be more than enough to whip you guys into shape, another clone agreed as they made their way up the hill toward one of Rias's family's houses. Speaking of which, why the hell am I the only one carrying a goddamn boulder? Issei complained while a clone that was situated on top of said boulder that was strapped to his back whistled a jaunty tune as if to add further insult to the pawn's situation. Because you're the one who needs the most help. Don't worry though, we've got plenty of tour training planned for the others as well, the first clone answered, making the others look at him critically for the thinly veiled promise of pain, except for Akino, who seemed excited at the prospect. If that was supposed to make me feel better, it didn't work. If anything, I'm even more concerned than before. The clones all shrugged indifferently as they continued their trek up the hill. This was gonna be fun. You're pure evil, Issei said between pants from his position face down in the dirt, while a clone sat on his back after having spent the last 15 minutes essentially pummeling the pawn into the ground. Remember when the boss said before that near-death experiences tend to help unlock your potential? The clone asked rhetorically. We're gonna show you exactly what he was talking about, the clone said before putting the boy into a triangle choke and making him gasp for air. Issei clawed at the ground as he tried to crawl away and his vision began to go black. Dragon booster. Second libation. A deep voice cried out from the jewel on Issei's boosted gear before the gauntlet changed once again as the various segments of armor separated, to produce several golden spikes. The clone that had been choking the life out of him was dispelled when he was struck by the large amount of energy that was released upon the transformation. Well now, this is certainly an interesting development, another clone called out from his position seated on a nearby branch while Issei panted for air. Issei managed to make it to his feet with a smile before the gauntlet disappeared once again. I did it, he whispered tiredly before he began to collapse forward in exhaustion. You did well, kid, the clone congratulated as it appeared before him to catch Issei on his back. That's good enough for the day. Let's get you back to the house so you can rest. Sounds good. Issei got out before his eyes drifted closed, and he finally lost consciousness. The clone shook his head in amusement as he carried the boy on his back to the villa they were staying in. We'll make a fighter out of you yet. Seriously? You managed to make his boosted gear evolve? Rias asked in surprise as she continued to look over the data from Riser's previous rating games. Never understatement the power of a near-death experience. How do you think the boss got so awesome? The clone asked rhetorically with a toothy grin. Rias gave an amused chuckle as she took off her glasses and stretched her arms over her head. Still, I would prefer if you didn't attempt to kill my servants, she said before stripping down and crawling into bed. Ma, don't worry about it, the clone waved her off. I'll take it easy on him tomorrow to let him recover a bit. While the statement was supposed to come off as comforting, Rias couldn't help but be skeptical at his definition of taking it easy. By the way, you look cute in those glasses, the clone commented before vanishing in a puff of smoke, leaving behind a blushing Rias. Stupid clones. So how come Asia gets to relax in the house while we're out here with these stupid weights strapped to our legs? Issei groaned as the next morning found him and Kaneko were in a large clearing with, just as Issei had said, weights attached to their legs that were similar to the ones that Rock Lee always wore. Because Asia is a support type, so Okinawa is helping teach her magic. You two on the other hand need to work on your speed. Now get moving, the clone explained before smacking Issei with a riding crop that he had pulled from somewhere. The boy let out a pained yelp before he and Kaneko began running around the clearing. And you pretty boy need to build up your strength and stamina, another clone said as he stroked a fake beard reminiscent of an elderly Chinese man. I get that, but isn't this a bit extreme? Kiba grumbled as he continued to do push-ups over a bed of needles, all while the clone with the beard sat on his back. I could always give you the Issei treatment, the clone answered with a sadistic gleam in his eye. Kiba immediately began doing push-ups at an increased pace. That's what I thought. Well, it looks like you're all working hard, Rias said as she entered the clearing. What's up, Rias? The clone that was working with Kaneko and Issei asked before smacking Issei again when he passed by and telling him to pick up the pace. I just came to check on everyone's progress, Rias said as she looked around to see Issei and Kiba were both panting with sweat dripping off of them in a steady flow. Kaneko's breathing was a bit labored, but other than that seemed fine. By the way, what is it that Naruto is doing exactly? She asked the nearest clone. He's working on something new, but we're not supposed to say what exactly, the clone answered, making Rias frown slightly in disappointment, but nod in understanding. Oh, the boss wanted me to give this to you, by the way, the clone recalled before tossing Rias a strange weapon that seemed similar to the kunai he normally used, but had 3 blades instead of 1 with some sort of inscription on the handle. What is this for exactly? She asked, not understanding why she was given such a thing. Before the raiding game starts, give that baby a throw and you'll see something cool, the clone smirked before turning away to resume watching over the training. Rias continued to look the strange knife over before deciding to put it away and just do as she was instructed. I hope we'll be ready in time, Rias whispered to herself as she went inside to check on Okinawa and Asia. I can't believe that bastard is late. Issei growled as the rest of the peerage, sans Naruto, were gathered and awaiting the start of the raiding game. Kiba was checking over his sword while Kaneko put on her combat gloves and Asia fidgeted nervously. Relax, Issei. I'm sure he'll make it in time, Kiba commented calmly, but Issei was still grumbling in annoyance. A silver magic circle appeared to mark the entrance of Graphia. Are you ready, Lady Rias? Graphia asked as she looked around the room and noticed the lack of a certain rook. I should also inform you that Lord Lucifer will also be watching, Graphia informed, earning a gasp of surprise from Issei. Whoa, as in the Lucifer? He asked in amazement. That is correct. Lord Surzex Lucifer is the leader of the underworld as well as the elder brother of Lady Rias, Graphia explained, making Issei stare at her with wide eyes. Whoa, your brother is the king of devils? Are you ready, Lady Rias? Graphia asked once again. Rias almost gave an affirmative response before she halted, remembering something. Oh, I almost forgot, Rias said as she pulled out the unusual knife the clone had given her. The others looked on in confusion before Rias threw the weapon as she was instructed. The assembled devils were surprised by the sudden orange flash as Naruto appeared and snatched the knife out of the air. You finally made it. Whoa, what the hell happened to you? Issei asked, seeing Naruto's disheveled state. His clothes were littered with various cuts and scorch marks while his hair was in complete disarray while sticking straight up in some areas, and he seemed to be covered in dirt. Aside from the fact that he looked like he just got out of a war zone before shoving a fork into an electrical socket, there was also a noticeable addition to his appearance. Strapped across the back of his waist was what appeared to be some sort of sword. Don't worry about it. Let's get this party started, Naruto answered with his usual grin while punching his open palm. Are you sure you're gonna be okay to fight like that? Rias asked in concern. Naruto just gave her a thumbs up as he made his way to the transportation circle. If you insist, Rias conceded as she motioned for the others to go to the circle. Do your thing, maid lady, Naruto said, earning a roll of the eyes from Graphia before they all vanished, only to reappear in the ORC clubroom. Did it not work or something? Issei asked as he looked around the room in confusion. His questions were answered as they could all hear Grafia announce that it had been decided that the stage for the raiding game would be a replica of Ko Academy. I'm sure you guys have a plan, but leave Riser to me. He's all mine, Naruto glared as he clenched his fists. Are you sure, Naruto-kun? We'd have a better chance if we took him on together. Rias attempted to reason with her rook, but he ignored her as he sat down in a lotus position and closed his eyes. Trust me, I can handle it, he reaffirmed while Rias gave him a concerned frown. If you're so sure, then I won't stop you. Oh, I'm sure, Naruto smirked as he opened his eyes to show they were red with slit pupils and had the marks to show he was in sage mode. Rias nodded to the others as they took off to proceed with their plan. So tell me, how did you appear like that when I threw that strange knife? Rias asked. TSK, trade secret my dear. If I told you, I'd have to kill you, Naruto smirked making Rias roll her eyes while smiling in amusement. Dress break. Issei yelled and with a snap of his fingers, the 3 pawns that he had been fighting were instantly stripped naked. So, that just happened, Naruto deadpanned as everyone watching the battle was left completely baffled by the pawn's unusual technique. It might have been effective, but it still gives off a bit of a rapey vibe, Naruto sighed while Rias giggled at the technique in amusement. You're such a perv, go off somewhere and die, Kaneko commented making Issei lower his head in despair. I thought you'd be proud I defeated them. Kaneko, Issei, get out of there, Akino is ready for the next phase. Rias commanded. Roger that, Bucho Issei called back as he and Kaneko made their way out of the gym. Where do you think you're going? Riser's rook yelled after them from the spot Kaneko had left her on the floor. She got her answer when as soon as Kaneko and Issei made it out, the entire gym was destroyed by a massive burst of lightning courtesy of a certain sadistic queen. 3 of Lord Riser's pawns and 1 of his rooks have been retired. Grafia had barely even finished her announcement before there was a large explosion that enveloped the area Kaneko had been standing. 1 of Lady Risa's rooks has been retired. Kaneko! Issei shouted as he watched Kaneko disappear from the game. You bitch! Get your ass down here so I can kick it! Issei yelled at Riser's queen as she hovered above him. Relax, Issei. Leave the bomb queen to me and go meet up with Kiba, Akino said as she dropped down next to the pawn. Issei seemed conflicted until he heard Rias over the radio telling him to do as Akino said. Reluctantly agreeing, Issei made his way in the direction he knew Kiba should be in. 3 of Lord Riser's pawns have been retired. Hey Issei, Kiba waved with his usual polite smile as he met up with the pawn. Hey, were you the one who took out those pawns? Yep, Akino's barrier made it almost too easy, Kiba said as he and Issei bumped fists before making their way over to the track where they encountered the remainder of Riser's peerage. Kiba and one of the knights who introduced herself as Carloman began a duel as their blades met in a clash of steel. Meanwhile, Issei was confronted by the rest of the remaining members where Riser's other rook charged at him with a fist drawn back. Mind if I cut in? Naruto's voice rang out as he appeared between Issei and the rook in a swirl of wind where he easily caught the approaching fist. About damn time you showed up, Foxboy, Issei chided earning a smirk from Naruto. Don't you know? The hero always shows up at the last minute, Naruto said as he casually tossed the rook aside by her fist making her let out a groan as she rolled across the ground. Issei rolled his eyes as he turned back towards the other enemies. So what's the plan, senpai? Issei asked as he got into a fighting stance. You take care of the midget. I'll handle the rest. Naruto patted Issei on the shoulder as he walked past him towards the others. Who the hell are you calling a midget, you jerk? The blonde girl in the frilly pink dress yelled indignantly as she made a large ball of fire and sent it at the rook's unprotected back. Issei let out a cry of watch out, but it was entirely unnecessary as Naruto casually backhanded the fireball making it disappear into thin air. You should really keep your eyes on your opponent, girly, Naruto advised as he pointed over his shoulder. The bishop looked up just in time to dodge a palm thrust Issei had sent towards her chest before leaping into the air with wings made of fire similar to Riser's. So you're a phoenix too, huh? Issei asked as he glared at the girl who was hovering out of his reach. That is correct. My name is Revel Phoenix and I am Riser's little sister, she introduced as she made another fireball and prepared to launch it at Issei. Now learn your place, low-born trash. She yelled as she hurled her attack at Issei. Yep, definitely related to that arrogant tool, Naruto thought idly as he dodged a kick from the rook before driving his elbow into her back with enough force to release a loud, cracking sound and a scream of pain signaling that he had broken her spine. 1 of Lord Riser's rooks have been retired. My bad, Naruto shrugged insincerely as the 2 remaining pawns leapt at him. Naruto dodged their punches before arcing back to duck under the horizontal swipe of the other knight's Zweihander. Naruto leapt back as he created 2 shadow clones who rushed at the pawns while he drew his sword, so he can make physical copies of himself. How interesting, a man with flowing red hair similar to Rias's commented as he watched the match from his throne. Show me what else you can do, Naruto Uzumaki. What the hell? That's cheating. The knight yelled as she blocked a swipe of Naruto's blade with the flat of her own. What can I say? I'm a one-man army. Naruto smirked as he jumped back and blue sparks began to dance along the edge of his sword. Forgive me for being a little rough here, but I have a chicken to fry. Chidori Iso. Naruto called out as a spear of blue lightning extended from his sword. The knight tried to shield herself with her Zweihander, but the attack cut straight through her weapon before continuing on its course straight through her chest. 2 of Lord Riser's knights, 1 of his bishops and 2 of his pawns have been retired. Hearing that the other knight and a bishop had also been retired, Naruto looked over to see a panting Kiba leaning against his sword with what looked like a sea of swords sticking out of the ground. Having completed their task of defeating the pawns, Naruto's clones dispelled themselves. Dragon shot! Issei called out as Naruto looked up in time to see Revel enveloped by a blast of red energy that had been released from Issei's sacred gear. 1 of Lord Riser's bishops has been retired. Naruto whistled in appreciation as he saw the amount of damage the attack had caused. Nicely done, Issei, Naruto congratulated, getting a smile from the panting pawn. The relief was short-lived however as they heard another announcement. Lady Rias's queen has been retired. Akino! Issei called out as he got ready to run in her direction. Cool it, Issei. You and Kiba go find Asia and get healed up. I'll handle it from here. Issei made to protest, but was shut down by the pair of narrowed red eyes that refused to take no for an answer. Fine, Issei grumbled as he made his way to Kiba and the 2 of them began the walk back to the clubroom where Asia should still be. Now then, it's show time. Let's go, Rias, Naruto said as he appeared behind her in an orange flash before wrapping an arm around her and vanishing along with her in another flash. Sit tight and watch closely, Naruto told the redhead as he walked towards where Riser and his queen were waiting. Well, so my future slave has made it this far, Riser commented with a smirk as he watched Naruto approach. Yubelina, put an end to this, he commanded to his queen who bowed her head before taking to the sky once more. You should consider yourself honored. You're about to be defeated by the Bomb Queen, Yubelina said as she prepared a magic circle. Naruto's response was to draw a 3-pronged kunai as he stared at the woman with a blank expression. Say goodbye, she yelled as she unleashed her attack. However, just before she did, Naruto released his weapon in her direction. When the smoke from the explosion cleared, it showed no sign of Naruto. Yubelina's eyes shot open as she heard the chirping of 1,000 birds from behind her. Goodbye, Naruto said mockingly as his lightning-encased hand erupted from the queen's chest. Lord Riser's queen has been retired. Amazing. Instantaneous teleportation, one of the watching nobles muttered, earning similar responses from others as they all stared at the rook as he stared at Riser while standing on the air as if it were a solid platform. Alright, Birdbrain, it's your turn, Naruto said as he once again brandished his tri-pronged kunai before launching it at the arrogant blonde and performing a hand sign causing one to turn into 200 as the tri-pronged blades littered the battlefield. Riser groaned as he pulled a few of them from his body before the wounds quickly closed with a burst of fire. You think a couple of knives will be enough to stop me? Riser asked in disbelief while Naruto just smirked and created a sea of clones. Now the fun can really begin, Naruto commented as several of his clones formed Razengans while others drew their swords and coated them with winged chakra before that all began, disappearing and reappearing around the field in flashes of orange, as they repeatedly drilled the swirling masses of chakra into Riser's body while others shredded his body into pieces with the wind-infused blades. Naruto smirked as he watched Riser continue to be assaulted by his clones before healing and repeating the process all over again. Riser growled as he unleashed a wave of flames that wiped out the clones. Chidori Nagashi, Naruto said as he released a concentrated burst of blue lightning in all directions that when it struck Riser caused all of his muscles to contract painfully, and left him completely immobile. Naruto took advantage of this by picking Riser up by the hair, and using his senjutsu-enhanced rook strength to repeatedly smash Riser's smug face in with sadistic glee. While it wouldn't leave any lasting damage, there was a sort of cathartic relief as he continued to pummel the arrogant bastard and felt the satisfaction of his skull shattering repeatedly as he continued to regenerate. Alright, I'm bored with this, Naruto sighed as he threw him on the ground. Is that all you've got? Riser asked between panting breaths as all of his wounds healed and he created a massive fireball above him. Die, low-class trash, Riser yelled as he tossed the attack at Naruto, who watched it coming with a bored expression. The ground trembled at the force of the fire's impact and sent smoke throughout the area. Naruto! Rias called out in alarm as Riser's boisterous laughter filled the air. Really? You call yourself a master of flames and that's all you've got? I grew up with a guy who could make better fireballs when he was 12. Naruto's voice called from the smoke before a burst of wind cleared it away to reveal an unharmed Naruto with his 8 wings wrapped protectively around him, and his tail swaying behind him. Well now, this is certainly an interesting turn of events, a black-haired man with blonde bangs said with an amused expression as he watched the battle from his TV. That's impossible, Riser muttered as he stared at his unusual opponent. Impossible is my middle name, bitch! Naruto yelled as he appeared above Riser in a burst of speed before sending him slamming face first into the ground with an axe kick that cratered the ground, leaving Riser in a crumpled heap in a crater that was approximately 6 meters deep and 30 meters in diameter. Creating several clones, Naruto created a Raisen Shuriken and continued to funnel chakra into it until it was bigger than him. Once it reached a size he was content with, his clones created 4 normal-sized Raisen Shurikens and threw them at the larger sphere of chakra, causing them to orbit around the attack. Flying high into the air until he was at a safe distance, Naruto pulled his arm back before unleashing his attack. Planetary Raisen Shuriken, he announced as the attack soared through the air to its target. Everyone watching was deafened by the loud screeching sound for a moment until the massive sphere made contact with the surface. Then all went white as a blinding flash of chakra erupted from the impact as hurricane force winds uprooted any trees in the area and decimated the nearby building that had been designated as Riser's base for the raiding game. Rias was forced to erect a barrier around herself to keep from being blown away. Gra! Riser screamed in pain as he was repeatedly torn apart by the innumerable amount of wind blades that had been released from the attack. Naruto waited until the flames signaling Riser's regeneration disappeared with a bored expression. Chidori Iso! Naruto called out as a spear of lightning shot from his hand and pierced his opponent's chest before he sent a concentrated Chidori Nagashi through the spear, leaving Riser completely paralyzed. Now then, let's finish this, Chidori Rendan! Naruto exclaimed as he picked Riser up by the face and unleashed a constant stream of dense magic-powered lightning throughout Riser's entire body while his clones continuously assaulted various parts of the Phoenix's body with their own lightning-covered hands or swords. Riser screamed in pain as he felt every nerve of his paralyzed body being repeatedly destroyed before regenerating and repeating the process infinitely. I surrender! I surrender! Just make it stop! Riser screamed in pain as he continued to be ravaged by the azure lightning. Lord Riser has surrendered. Lady Rias wins. Riser hadn't even finished being teleported out of the game for medical attention before Naruto was tackled by a red blur. I told you I could handle. Naruto was interrupted when Rias crashed her lips against his own. Naruto allowed himself to be surprised for only a moment before returning the kiss and opening his mouth to grant Rias's probing tongue access. The two continued the war of tongues until the need for air arose and they separated with a string of saliva connected them. Thank you, Rias whispered as she leaned against him. Naruto smiled as he wrapped his arms around her. Anytime, Rias, I'll always be there for you. Hold on, Graphia, the same red-haired man from earlier ordered, stopping the silver-haired woman from transporting the pair out of the game zone. Let's give them a few minutes to themselves to celebrate, he explained with a smirk, earning a nod from the maid. As you wish, Lord Surzex. Once the pair had finally been removed from the game zone, they entered the large ballroom where various nobles and other important figures had gathered to watch the game. As soon as their presence was noticed, the room erupted in an uproar of applause and various congratulatory cheers. Naruto could feel a large number of the assembled group eyeing him in awe and curiosity. Settle down, everyone, Surzex's commanding voice called out as he stood from his throne that was situated on a raised platform. The assembled devils all took a step back to clear a path to the Gremry heiress as they heeded his command. Surzex made his way through the crowd with a warm smile as he approached the pair. Naruto kept his face blank, not giving away his feelings regarding the approaching man. Let me be the first to congratulate you on your incredible victory, you too, he offered with the same warm smile on his face. Rias bowed her head as she responded, saying thank you, Lord Surzex. Now, there's no need to be so formal with me, Riatan, he said as Rias's eyebrow began to twitch in annoyance at the nickname. I assume you're Rias's older brother? Naruto asked with a blank expression, earning a nod from the other man. That is correct, and might I say that was a most impressive display. Surzex was cut off as Naruto delivered a senjutsu-enhanced punch to the man's face, earning a satisfying crunch signifying a broken nose as the room erupted in outrage. Naruto! Rias scolded as several devils moved to apprehend him, but halted when Surzex held up his hand. The demon lord readjusted his nose and spat out a glob of blood. I probably deserved that one, he admitted as he observed the boy who was gritting his teeth as he clenched his fists. You're damn right you did. Naruto growled as his red eyes glared at the man before him. You deserve a hell of a lot more than that for everything you put Rias through. Surzex sighed as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. While the decision was made with the best of intentions, Surzex held his hand up when it seemed like Naruto was going to interrupt him. I agree that it was a selfish decision. As an apology and a gift for defeating Riser single-handedly, I will grant you any request you wish, as long as it is within my power to do so. Naruto stared at Rias's brother for a moment in thought as he came to a decision. I want you and anyone else involved in the arranged marriage to give Rias an apology, Naruto answered, drawing shocked looks from everyone who heard him, especially Rias. Are you sure? I could give you power, wealth, your own territory, or even nobility. Naruto shook his head with the hard expression never leaving his face. I don't believe in power that I didn't work to acquire myself, nor do I care about money, territory, or silly titles. What I do care about is Rias and all of my friends who have been affected by your decisions. Surzex smiled at the young man who seemed determined to do whatever it takes to protect his precious baby sister and her honor. Very well then, I shall ensure that it is done. I will just need a moment to gather everyone involved. Naruto nodded before turning to Rias with a bright smile. Rias's eyes gleamed with unshed tears as she took Naruto's hand and led him out to the balcony where they could have some privacy. Once outside, Rias pressed her face into his chest and allowed her tears to fall. You didn't have to do that, she whispered as Naruto ran his fingers through her hair and kissed the top of her head. I know, Naruto responded as he lifted her chin and used his thumbs to wipe away her tears. But I wanted to, he finished before pressing his lips against Rias's in a chaste kiss. The pair remained that way until they were interrupted by Surzex clearing his throat. Everyone is waiting in the study to apologize as you requested, he informed them, making Naruto nod his head as he took Rias's hand and they followed the red-haired Satan back into the mansion. I apologize that Riser was unable to join us, but he is still unconscious after your battle. Naruto waved the man off as he noticed the other people that had been assembled, and were spread around the room. That's fine. He and I already have an agreement that he had to apologize if he lost. In that case, let me be the first to apologize, Surzex said as he knelt in front of Rias and bowed his head. Rias, I'm sorry for everything that we put you through, but I always had faith that you would find a way to get out of it if you so desired. I know that's no excuse, but I want you to know that I believe in you and your potential. Rias smiled at her brother, as he rose to his feet, and gave him a hug. I'm so sorry, Rias. We never meant to hurt you. We were just doing what we thought was best. Then Alana Bale hugged her daughter with tears in her eyes as she continued to mutter apologies to her beloved daughter. Rias returned the hug as she told her mother that she forgave her. Xiaticus Gremry stepped forward and let out a sigh as he placed a hand on his daughter's head and gave her a short "I'm sorry" before stepping back next to his wife. Figuring that was probably the best she was going to get from the man, she nodded her head. Rias, dear, Lady Phoenix began as she stepped forward. While I can't help but feel disappointed for not having you as a daughter-in-law, I apologize for our selfish actions and not taking your feelings into consideration. Lord Phoenix placed a hand on his wife's shoulder as he stepped forward to take her place. While I still believe the union of our houses would be the best thing for our races, he began, earning a heated glare from Naruto at the rather shitty start to what was supposed to be an apology. I will agree that Riser's behavior was unbecoming as a member of the Phoenix family, and apologize for any grief he may have caused you and your servants. Thank you, everyone. Rias smiled as she squeezed Naruto's hand as he was still glaring at Lord Phoenix for his seemingly insincere apology. I accept your apologies. Now if you'll excuse me, I would like to return to the human world with my peerage. Rias bowed as she turned to leave and joined the rest of her peerage. Surzex nodded to Graphia, who understood the unspoken command and left to complete her king's order. Rias, please allow Graphia to handle transporting your peerage. I have another gift for the two of you to celebrate your victory, Surzex said once he caught up to his sister. Rias looked over to Naruto to see what he thought while he just shrugged his shoulders in response. Lead the way. A griffin? Rias questioned as she looked at the bird-like beast in confusion. What's this for? She asked her brother, who smiled as he ran his fingers over the creature's feathers. I thought you two could use a little break to celebrate, so he's going to take you to our beach house in Okinawa for the weekend, Surzex explained. And don't worry about your peerage. Graphia has already informed them you two will be gone for the weekend, so it'll be just the two of us all weekend? Naruto blushed at the implications that came along with that statement as he looked at Rias, who was sporting her own tinge of pink on her cheeks. That's right, and you two better get going while there's still daylight there, Surzex said as he pushed them toward the griffin. Once the two of them were seated on the flying beast with Rias in Naruto's lap, she turned to her brother with a smile. Thanks for this, she said before the bird-like creature took off with Surzex waving after them. Graphia came up to stand beside him as she too watched them fly off. You didn't tell them that you had that prepared before the raiding game even started, his silver-haired wife stated flatly as she turned to her husband with a small smile. Surzex shrugged as he turned to his wife with a smile of his own. I had faith that she would find a way to pull through, Surzex replied before turning to make his way back into the mansion. Graphia continued to smile as she followed after her husband. You know, that was my first kiss, so you better take responsibility, Rias told Naruto as she turned to face him. Naruto chuckled as he pulled her tightly to his chest. As you wish, my king, he smirked as the two met in a passionate kiss as they made their way through the skies of the underworld. Chapter 5, Vacation. Once they had arrived at the Gremry family's beach house in Okinawa, which happened to be on a private beach that they owned as well. It was approaching sunset, and Naruto had to admit that it was a very relaxing atmosphere, perfect for some much-needed downtime. Come on, let's check out the house, Rias exclaimed excitedly as she took Naruto by the hand and practically dragged him into the house, which was surprisingly conservative in size, considering the normal size of the homes of devils he had seen so far, and seemed to keep to the theme of a typical island resort. The floor, walls and furniture all seemed to be made from sanded wood, so that the whole house seemed like it had been built from the various trees he had seen nearby. The only thing that seemed out of place was the fridge, stove and other kitchen appliances. Despite the fact he was still somewhat pissed at Surzex, he was definitely grateful for the chance to enjoy the weekend in this private slice of paradise. I'm gonna go for a swim before it gets dark, Rias informed him as she made her way into what he assumed was the bedroom to presumably change into a bathing suit. Grabbing a bottle of water out of the fridge that had apparently been fully stocked before their arrival, Naruto slowly looked out at the ocean through the large bay window located beside the front door, while he waited for his companion. How do I look? Naruto probably should have known better by now, but still spat out the water in his mouth in surprise when he saw what she was wearing. That is not a swimsuit, that's a fucking ribbon, Naruto finally commented with a heavy blush on his face after he got over his coughing fit. The reason for his reaction being the fact that Rias's choice of swimwear left very little to the imagination, as it was a thin strip of purple cloth that barely covered. You don't like it? Rias asked with a mock-hurt expression. Naruto chose not to answer the question as he made his way into the bedroom to find something for him to wear as well. He adamantly refused to admit that he found the erotic swimwear to be incredibly arousing. After changing into a swimsuit, Naruto made his way out to the beach, but Rias was nowhere in sight. Striding across the sand toward the water, he heard someone running up behind him before he felt legs wrap around his waist, arms around his neck and the familiar softness of fleshy globes pressing into his back. Looking for someone? Rias whispered huskily in his ear, sending a shiver down his spine. Naruto's response was to hold on to Rias's legs before running to the nearby ocean and diving and making Rias let out a squeak of surprise at the impromptu dip in the ocean. "Mao, that wasn't very nice, Naruto-kun," Rias pouted at the laughing Naruto as she brushed the hair out of her face once she resurfaced. Naruto continued to chuckle lightly as he pulled Rias to his chest, where she continued to pout cutely. "Come on, don't be mad," Naruto muttered as he lifted her chin before placing a kiss on her pouting lips. Rias continued to pout for a moment before relenting and returning the kiss. Wrapping her arms around his neck, Rias deepened the kiss as the sun set behind them and the sky was lit up in an array of pinks and oranges. "So, it's kinda late at this point," Naruto began as he pressed his forehead against hers. "But will you be my girlfriend?" Naruto asked, making Rias giggle before giving him a quick peck on the lips. "It's about time you asked," she chastised as she slapped his chest. "Of course I will." Naruto smiled as he and Rias stared at the sunset and just enjoyed the moment together. After spending some time together on the beach, the sun had long since set as the new young couple was currently seated in the kitchen having a quick dinner Naruto had thrown together that consisted of salmon, rice and a small salad. They spent most of the meal in comfortable silence until Naruto finished and got up to place his dishes in the sink. "I'm gonna go take a quick shower to rinse off all this sand and salt water. I won't take long, so you can rinse off too when I'm done." Rias nodded her head with chopsticks still in her mouth as she watched Naruto make his way toward the bathroom, completely missing the devious smirk she wore. Entering the bathroom, Naruto noted that the room was for the most part like any other ordinary bathroom, with a double vanity with a mirror behind it, towel closet and other normal toiletries. The only thing that truly stood out was the large shower encased in frosted glass that was etched with a scene similar to what he had seen looking out the bay window earlier. There was a white sandy beach with palm trees and waves cresting in the background as birds flew overhead. The thing that stood out the most to him, however, was the fact that it was likely big enough for half a dozen people to shower together comfortably. Stepping into the shower, Naruto took some shampoo from the various assortments of shampoos, conditioners and body washes and began the process of washing away the sand and salt clinging to his hair and scalp. As he was rinsing out the shampoo, he noticed the distinct clicking sound of the bathroom door being opened and closed. Wiping the water from his eyes, he turned to see a naked Rias stepping into the shower. "What are you doing, Rias?" he asked as he turned his back to her to hide his blush as well as other things. "I thought I'd come wash your back for you. Is that okay?" Rias asked as she reached for some body wash, and Naruto nodded his approval. That was when things took a pretty significant turn from what he expected. What if Godlike Naruto is the Riser brother? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.